I don't know what I look like. I don't know what I sound like. I'm having an existential crisis.
Who are you?
Who am I? Hey guys.
Hello.
I just got over being sick, so my voice is going to sound an octave lower. At least I think it sounds an octave lower.
I think it sounds fine.
I wonder what I really sound like. Do you think we'd ever really know what we actually sound like?
I don't know.
To other people?
I feel like when you're getting filmed, like you hear yourself after a recording.
But don't you think that probably distorts it a little bit?
I don't know, because if I see a video of you like on Instagram or something, I'm like, okay, that sounds like you.
Yeah, okay, fair. Well, and like even, I guess I was just thinking of how they say you don't actually know like what you yourself look like. Because it's always just either a picture or like a mirror image or...
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I look like. I don't know what I sound like. I'm having an existential crisis.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Are you real?
I don't know. Anywho.
That's what we're talking about today.
That is what we're talking about. It's a philosophical discussion.
Yes.
No, we were actually thinking, so last week we were missing Seamus. This week we're missing Bridget because she had the nerve to,
have a life,
take some PTO or some shit. I don't know. So we thought today we would play off of kind of what we talked about last time of like bad social media advice, in the sense of like knowledge that was lacking, like what you should be told to do as a dog owner, but you rarely are told to do because the internet doesn't tell you. And instead put a twist on it and cover like things that you either are told is important and actually aren't that important, or is just straight up bad advice.
Yeah.
Which
there's a lot, so hopefully we can cover it all.
Yeah. So one that we literally just discussed an hour ago, maybe, because we were trying to figure it out, is the concept of like going through like a doorway first before your dog. I think that's like a weird one that a lot of people are told is important, is that your dog needs to see you go first through the doorway, which isn't true.
No,
that's not true.
No, I think it's the issue of them having to wait, or the expectation of them waiting while you walk through, and then correcting for them to follow you, which I think the real issue of the why we do doorways is to prevent the dog from being overstimulated for going on the walk or getting excited because they see a dog outside or whatever it may be, and wanting to just like rush it, right? So as long as your dog isn't really doing that and they can stay with you, there's no problem with it. So when the biggest thing that I find when I see people doing that is you're correcting your dog for doing the right thing in that way. If the dog is politely coming with you and like and staying within your little bubble for the heel command and stuff. Yeah. But that's the biggest confusion that I see that you're giving to the dog, which is going to again create confusion and lead to more corrections.
Yeah. Cuz it has nothing to do with like, oh, it's a leadership thing. Like they need to see you go through the doorway first. He's snoring. I hope you guys enjoyed the cutest little chihuahua snores. Which, fun fact of the day, a lot of people don't classify them as like a brachycephalic dog, but they are.
Really?
Yeah, did you guys know that?
I did not.
They're considered brachycephalic. As you can tell.
I know. Yep.
Anyway, so like Seamus was saying, it's more so about like the dog just having a calm mindset around thresholds and being like respectful, and in my opinion, like at least waiting for permission. Yeah. Like there's plenty of times where like if I'm going outside and I have my 3 dogs, honestly, it's easier if they go first a lot of times, because like I'm probably holding things, like, I want to hold the door open. Like there's a million different things. So for me, it's like if I'm opening the door, they should not just be rushing out in front of me. They're waiting, but then I tell them, okay, and then they can go, and then I can go in after them. So it's less about like I have to go first, and more about like, you guys just need to be respectful of the threshold boundaries and wait until I release you.
Right.
And what you had mentioned of like, say it's a concept of like they're on leash because you're going for a walk or something. You just have to pick which route you want to take. Like a lot of times, like, so what we teach in our curriculum is that the dog is in like a come command or like a heel command, whatever word you want to use. You approach the door. You say nothing to the dog in preparation to opening it. You open the door. And if they are expected to stay with you and not go ahead of you and go through. If they step over the threshold, they get corrected, they get brought back in, because we teach a default expectation of waiting at a threshold. And you have to be explicitly told to go through the doorway.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, what the internet tells you to do is, tell your dog to sit, then open the door. And they
I was
going to
say before the door even opens.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the difference is that what happens if you don't tell your dog to sit? Are they free to just run through the doorway?
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't want to create that expectation. So the way we do it in our curriculum, if you were to then try to walk through the door ahead of your dog and then correct them for just walking nicely next to you because they didn't wait for you to go through, it'd be very confusing. Because if the last command we gave them was come, and they're abiding by that, and then we say, okay, now I'm going to walk through the door, and then you correct them for coming with you, you're correcting them for doing the command that you asked them.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. Yeah. It's just, it gets so confusing for the dog.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So you have to like, what we were talking about is like, if you're hell-bent on your dog waiting for you to go through first, then you then at that point kind of have to tell them to sit.
Yeah.
Otherwise they wouldn't know that they're supposed to stay behind the threshold and not go through with you. That idea of like, tell them to do something to make them wait for something, I think is just a big overarching theme.
Right.
That we're told is very important when it's really not.
Yeah.
Like the idea, what they're trying to get at is important, but they're just doing it the wrong way.
It's kind of like putting that Band-Aid on, you know. I feel like it's not, in a lot of ways, the sit before you open the door, it prevents you working through the problem, you know. And what I see a lot with that is that it works, and I mean, this is something we always say, but it works until it doesn't. You know, it's something where, yeah, there's no dogs out there side, or there's no squirrels running across the yard or whatever, then yeah, your dog is going to listen to you and it's going to be fine. But there's something that they care about more than just sitting before they open the door. Yeah. And they know that they can without giving the consequence, then they're going to go.
Oh, yeah. Well, and like, say you tell them to sit and they sit, and you open the door and then you release them and they're just going to like slingshot like right out the door. And you don't necessarily have like I suppose there's effective ways to then address that arousal that comes up. Yeah. But like the most effective way to do it is to just do the way we just described, where like it's just a default thing. Yeah. There's no point in doing the other thing at that point. Same with like eating food. Right. Like you don't have to do like a sit or a bed command so that your dog doesn't eat the food when you put it on the floor. Yeah. You should be able to put the food down and the dog just doesn't touch it until you explicitly give them permission to. Yeah. Yep. So I think that is like an overarching theme, is a common one.
Probably something that we'll tie in a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
what are some other ones that we're told are important but aren't?
One that I was like, what I was saying earlier too is when greeting or when introducing your dog to people, especially if they are a nervous dog or whatever, an anxious dog, is giving them treats and then being like, oh, just give this dog, like give them a treat and let them come say hi to you and like let them warm up to you. Yep. And then they'll like you, you know? And I've seen that work terribly so many times because the dog comes in and they're like, I don't know you. And then they go and nip them, you know, anyways. So
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So it's something where you don't need to be your friend's dog's best friend, you know, like There's no need. If they're nervous or anxious, let them warm up to you on their own time if they want to, right? I always say this to a lot of the clients too. Like when you have guests over, they're not coming over for your dog, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be mindful of that as a guest as well, where it's like when you go over to your friend's house, you're not going over there necessarily to see your dog. You're going, you should be going over there to see your friend. You know what I mean? Like, so it's something that your attention to that dog is not a necessity.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's funny you say that, because I just did like a field trip lesson today with one of my clients, and they have a puppy. It's about almost 6 months old now, and has come leaps and bounds of how fearful she was, but she's just Mabel.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Just very, very nervous. And she's improved quite a bit, but so we were in one of the stores, and one of the workers approached us, like, do you need help with anything, whatever. And she was like, oh, like, can I pet your dog? And I, knowing that Mabel isn't like a dangerous dog, I decided that I was just not going to say anything. Because at this point in the training, like, again, I want my clients to work somewhat independently, and I'm just like there, to observe and give points if I need to. And so I just, I stayed out of it. And so she said like, yes. And then Mabel kind of did this whole, like, I'm interested, but then I'm not interested. And then she barked once, and then she hopped around, you know what I mean? And it was like a whole thing. And then when we walked away, I told her, I explained why Mabel did what she did, and then why it seems like because Mabel is so nervous around new people, and the internet tells you like your dog needs to be socialized more to fix that, why doing that is actually the opposite of what you should do.
Or just like, because they're not aggressive, you can let them go, or let everyone come say hi to them.
Yeah, because I told her, I said, well, at 5-6 months old, you're just going to get avoidance and a bark. But 10 months old, 14 months old, you might get a snap. You might get something like that. So
and she finds out something's going to be more effective than just that little bark.
Then and when, like if she's already giving you cues, so like I was like, you look at the situation as a whole, where like we were walking, the worker approached, started talking, and what did we immediately see Mabel do? Kind of like move away, right? So off the bat, Mabel told you, I'm nervous. I don't know about this person. And then from there, if she immediately notifies us with her body language that she's uncomfortable, and we allow someone to overstep then the boundaries, then she loses trust in us. She loses, in that situation, she's like, well, okay, if this keeps happening, then I'm going to have to get bolder and bolder and bolder each time to make sure it doesn't. And so I think that's a big misconception, or people are given very bad advice if they have like a fearful or a nervous dog, in that they're told like, oh, they need to meet more people. Right. When in reality, they need to meet less people.
Yep. It's good to be in that public exposure, right? And having that worker come up and talk to them is fine, especially if Mabel is kind of like hanging back and is a little nervous and stuff. Totally fine. But
it's great.
She's doing the right thing by just being like, I don't know. I'm just going to kind of step back and let mom do this thing, you know? And you're absolutely right. When they lose that trust by you allowing that person to come in, something that they're clearly trying to show that they're nervous, and you ignore those signs, and it's something that, because you lose that trust, it is something where they have to take it upon themselves. And that's where we find that snowball, where it's just like, okay, well, I mean,
I tried to tell
you.
This
is happening. So it can really snowball. So it's something that, especially if Mabel's a very cute dog. She's young.
You can't take her anywhere without everyone fawning over
everyone
her.
is going to want to come and say hi. And that's really just something where, not saying that's why she's so nervous as old as she is right now, but it's something that it will continue to feed that nervousness if that is something that, that she just continues to allow doing.
And she's like very well behaved. So great. On top of her being like adorable, everyone's like, she's so good. She's walking so nice. Because they've done a fantastic job with what they can control.
Yes.
It's just the aspects of like we can't control that she's scared of a lot of stuff. So we just have to take the steps that we can to like help mitigate it as much as possible and like build our confidence. So I described to them afterwards, I was like, so those were the reasons why we don't want to do that.
Right.
But if that same thing were to happen, what is good to do is have that conversation with that worker.
Yeah.
You know, don't shy away from that. But the moment that it's like, oh, like, can I say hi? You say, no, thank you. Like, we're training right now. She's just a little bit nervous, whatever. And then Mabel leaves that situation being like, okay, so I was a little bit freaked out that that person came up and was talking to me, but she didn't try to touch me.
Right.
She didn't invade my space.
Yep.
I didn't have to do any unhealthy coping mechanisms to defend myself. So she leaves that situation with a little bit more, she's less jaded.
Yes. And again, that's why you went out there in public, is to get that exposure. It's not that you shouldn't have public exposure for your dogs.
Yes.
But it's something where you just need to kind of know when it's too much for your dog.
You have to
I
be
guess,
intentional about it.
Yes, yes. If you know you're going to the park or to somewhere because your dog's nervous and you're using that as a session, don't ruin that progress that you're making at that session by allowing those people to kind of come in and intrude when you know that that is the trigger, you know, or whatever, or something that's going to, you know, make your dog more nervous. Because then it just defeats the whole purpose. You know?
Then the dog's like, I knew it.
Yep, exactly.
People are terrifying.
I knew I hated this, you know? Yeah.
I knew it. Just proved me right.
So yeah, so that would be another thing, is don't worry about like overexposure and interactions with random strangers.
So like him, Snoop, for example, my Chihuahua, I, as like proof of, you know, that type of technique of like, they don't have to meet everybody. Like he grew up obviously in like a ideal environment, I guess you could say. And he has a good like genetic base to start with, but he didn't actually meet more than maybe two handfuls of people as a puppy. And it was like very carefully selected. Like I was like, okay, you're going to meet like my family, obviously, and they're going to interact with you in a way that I want them to. I let him meet two little kids that live immediately next door to me. Because I was like, I want him to like hang around kids and, you know, get a little bit of exposure to that. And I knew they would listen to me very well on exactly what I wanted them to do. So it was like he didn't need to meet 100 kids. He needed to meet two well-behaved ones.
Yes.
He didn't need to meet 100 men with hats on. He needed to meet a handful of men that he was able to be like, oh, hey, no big deal, whatever, and then just move on with his life. And so you don't have to think about it this way, like the more people you allow your dog to engage with, the more chances there are for it to go terribly wrong.
Yes.
Or to have like a negative impact.
Right.
So like,
especially when it comes to strangers. Right?
Oh,
you
yeah.
were saying like the two handfuls that you have.
It was all people I knew.
Yes.
It was all people I knew.
Trust. Even the kids, you knew you could trust them.
Yeah.
You know?
He didn't know he was meeting people that I know.
Exactly.
And he wouldn't have known if they were strangers. Like it has no bearing on like the socialization of your dog, on whether it's a complete stranger at the store or, you know, whatever it might be.
Right. It's what he takes away from that situation.
Yeah, exactly. And now, I mean, he's extremely neutral.
Yep.
Like people, like if I use him in lessons with clients, he like looks at the people and then just walks right by him. They're like, come here, puppy. And he's like, I'm busy. Right. I have stuff to do.
Do you see all these dogs around?
And like he'll go up and they'll scratch him on the head and then he'll leave. And like, he's just very take it or leave it, you know, which is exactly what you want out of a dog that's social. You're told that, you know, you should have these dogs that are uber friendly and stuff. You don't want a dog who's like brain falls out every time they see people.
Yep. Because that's a whole different like end of the spectrum in terms of reactivity. And we've talked about this too. Where it's just like, that's still reactivity and unwanted reactivity.
Yes.
It's just not threatening. So people allow it to continue.
Exactly.
You know?
It's just
but it doesn't
cuter.
mean, it doesn't mean that it can't be harmful. You know, you get a big dog jumping on you and knocks people over and stuff or whatever, you know, like, or someone gets excited and they're walking on leash. They see a neighbor or a friend that they know and they yank the owner off their feet.
Yeah.
You know,
And then they run in the road and get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Or,
it's
stuff
something
like
where
that.
it's just as dangerous. It's just not seen that way because it's excitement.
Yeah.
You know?
It manifests a little bit differently.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I remember the one I was talking about before we started. Sorry, my eye is watering because I've been trying to sneeze all day. And I just haven't been able to.
Do they say staring at the light helps or does that stop it?
I think it's supposed to help. No. Maybe that's what's triggering it is these lights.
Sneaking up.
Anyway, was people feeling like before in any context that you're trying to reward your dog that they need to like sit before you give them the treat.
Oh yeah.
We were just talking about this. So like an example is like there'll be times when I'm working with puppies that are 9-10 weeks old, and I feel like sit is like the number one thing that people always go to teach really fast, like owners. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but then it's like they're key to everything. Yeah. Like their dog has to sit to unlock the treats.
Yeah.
Or else they just don't get any, regardless of like what you're trying to reward for. So like I had an instance where I had a puppy with a client and we were in one of the rooms working, and one of the other trainers had to walk a dog through. And the puppy like watched the dog go by, was very neutral, didn't bark, didn't want to go over, it wasn't scared of it, whatever, just observed it. And so I told the owner, I was like, go ahead and give him a treat, capitalize on that. And she pulls out the treat and she goes, sit, sit, sit. And then it became like, now we're trying to get the dog to do a completely unrelated thing to get the treat, and they're not doing it.
Right.
So now we've completely shifted like the whole situation that we were trying to reward for.
The reward's no longer connected to what you actually want it to be connected with.
Yes.
You've just thrown another command in the middle of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and because like a situation, I think it's important to distinguish that like food can be a reward for like performing a behavior, like you did something that unlocked the reward, you get it, great. But you can also use food to like create associations.
Yeah.
And that doesn't require the dog to do necessarily anything spectacular.
Right.
It's more of like an external thing. So what I wanted to reward for in that moment, and of course I explained all of this to them, was that the puppy didn't do anything.
Right.
And that's exactly what you want, is like creating the idea that every time you see something that maybe if we weren't actively trying to train you not to, would eventually, because this is a golden retriever puppy, would eventually become super exciting, right? As soon as the first time she plays with a few dogs, all of a sudden now it's going to unlock in her head that like when she sees a dog, she's going to be like, I want to go play with them.
Go.
Yeah, the moment that she gets a couple pets from new people is the moment that then now every new person she sees, she's going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So like by capitalizing on those moments of like you saw something and you were fine, and then in fact I gave you something really rewarding, you're going to create like a mentality where you're out and about, your dog sees a dog and they go, treat please.
Yeah.
And then they're paying attention to you instead. And so there's a lot of times that with puppies, I'm rarely using food for like obedience, and I'm using it more for like behavior.
Yep. And that's exactly what I was going to say. There's like the big thing is like correct or rewarding for behavioral stuff and not so much the obedience stuff of sitting or laying down or getting on the bed to do it. Yeah. It's just like, hey, you didn't do anything wrong, so here's something to reward you with.
Exactly.
So yeah, and it kind of encourages them, like you were saying, then they start kind of focusing at you and they start realizing, well, I didn't do anything wrong, and so they look for that reward. And that's exactly kind of what you want in those situations. It's just the neutrality of it. You were saying.
Yeah, because they figure out that like, because foundationally, like the most important thing, I think teaching obedience to puppies is like the worst advice anyone could give. Not because it's wrong to teach obedience to puppies, but because it's just not important.
Right.
Like that's not, if somebody has a puppy and they have a relatively like normal type lifestyle where they're a little bit busy, obedience is like the least of the concerns of them to prioritize their time on. You want to create a foundation of a dog who knows how to learn and likes learning and likes you.
Yep.
And like you need those three things to then, you know, the dog's 7, 8 months old, whatever, and you want to teach it sit, you're going to be able to do that instantly.
Easy.
And even prior to that, you'll probably have been able to take your puppy everywhere all the time and their behavior be really good. They just might not know commands.
Right.
And that's okay.
That's fine.
They don't need to know commands.
No, you don't. It's something where it's, again.
Like I know I harp on it all the time, but like this guy didn't know any commands other than like, and even then I would like argue that he didn't even know like a formal come command. It's just that he knew being close to me was beneficial to him.
Yep.
So, and I never allowed him to like create a habit of playing keep away or not, you know what I mean? Or stuff like that. So it was just never a thought in his head, but I didn't teach him anything other than being near me, get you good stuff.
Yep.
And like, there's certain things that you're not allowed to do.
Right.
But other than that, like he didn't know how to sit.
Yeah. So it's really just the importance of just like understanding that when you're giving a reward, you know, you don't need to add these extra layers and kind of confuse them with what they're actually getting the reward with.
Yes.
Because if you add that sit every single time that they don't get reactive, you know, then it's something that they're only going to think they're getting the reward for sitting.
Exactly.
You know? And it can still happen. And then that's when you're like, well, this training just isn't working because they're still getting reactive when, you know, when sometimes they do it and sometimes they don't.
Yep.
You know?
Because then it's like now if they don't sit, you can't reward them.
Right.
Because you like added another layer of expectation.
Yep.
Oh, another one that I just thought of, things that people are told to do that really isn't important, is using food for potty training.
In what way?
So like how people will take treats out and as soon as the dog like pees or poops, they give it food.
Yeah.
Or they come back, worst case, or even worse, they come all the way back inside and then give like food or something because they went to the bathroom. That's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like it's just... This might be a hill I'll die on, is I hate using food for potty training. Like, it's just pointless. Like, the dog is not doing anything spectacular.
Right.
They're shitting and pissing.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're gonna do it no matter what. It's not like we're soliciting a handstand out of the dog. Like, the dog will do this natural behavior. You just have to make sure it happens outside in the place that you want it to, and do that long enough that it becomes habit, and they are essentially brainwashed into thinking that is the only place I can go to the bathroom. Similarly, like as an adult, it would be hard to pee your pants.
Yes.
Like I would have to really try right now to pee my pants because we're so conditioned that like you go to the bathroom to do that. Like as a dog, that can happen where once they hit a certain point, they're like, I can't go anywhere other than outside. I have to go outside. And so, and the reason why food is unnecessary is because, again, it's more so just a game of like habit and consistency. And the act of going to the bathroom is reward in and of itself.
Right.
Like it feels good to go to the bathroom. You feel better afterwards. So when you take your puppy outside and they've got to pee and they pee, they're like, oh, that was great.
Right.
I feel so much better. I mean, dogs get the after poop zoomies.
Yep.
They're loving it.
You can definitely tell the
stoked.
energy spikes.
Yeah, exactly. So like that in and of itself is reward enough. And the other reason why I think it's silly to use food is because unless your dog already has a marker system in place and they understand like a yes marker, you would literally have to be feeding them the treat as they're peeing or pooping.
Yep.
Or you're marking it.
Yep.
And then you're giving the reward afterwards. But the timing has to be so specific on those behaviors for them to mark it. And again, it's like, they're getting rewarded for peeing.
Right. And you know what?
They're not connecting it to peeing outside.
Right. I don't have like too much experience with this specific situation, but what I could see happening too, because your timing of the marking has to be so well, is I could see this just with like my dog, like with Sully, is like if he was peeing or pooping and I was like, good or yes or whatever, and I rewarded him, he's going to stop peeing.
Yeah. Yes.
He's going to be like, no, that's better.
Exactly.
Let me run and grab that. And then you're like, so then you kind of like fall into that circle. I don't know if that's a very common thing, but I could definitely see that.
100%. Because like I think about him, like he was marker trained at a young age. And if I said yes, he is zooming to me to get whatever it was, you know, because like, you build so much value into that, that it more so becomes a distraction at that point than anything. Or a dog that's like as food motivated as he is. If I'm trying to give him something while he's pooping, like there's gonna be poop flying everywhere.
You have to. He has to be forced into one pleasure or the other pleasure.
Yes, you know? So that's the thing is like I don't see any point in that. And then worse, that I've only ever seen like annoying things come of it. Yeah, using food, because most people, they're giving the dog the food after they've gone to the bathroom, or even worse, when they've come back inside. So like if your
jar of treats on the counter.
Exactly. And so your dog just associates coming back inside as what is reward worthy. And so now you have a dog who annoys you to go outside to do nothing, to just come back inside to get something.
Yep. Or they go outside and then they just sit by the front door or the back door or something, just waiting for you to let them back in.
Yes. Yep. They're like, okay, I went outside, step one. Now I just need to come back inside and I get food.
Because again, there's no marker tied to them getting the reward because they went to the bathroom.
Exactly. They're just tying it to whatever event happened the most
crossing
previous.
That threshold to the door. They went out.
Gets me the food. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I hate using food with potty training. I think it's
that's a really good point. I never.
But people tell people to do that all the time.
Oh, wow.
That's a big one. I feel like that's like a common thing. They're like, yeah, and then make a party with your puppy after they pee and make them all excited and give them the treat. Like, stop doing that. You look silly.
Right.
You look silly. Your dog's peeing. Come on. Yeah, that's a big one. What is... Oh, like going
think of another one.
Going off of that, don't reward for like events. So let me expand on this more. So like I have, and it's usually doodles where notoriously, they just have really bad demand behaviors, like the demand barking, the pawing, all that kind of stuff. And it's usually tied back to the owners will like give them rewards or enrichments due to a predictable like event that happens in the day. Yeah. So like, for instance, like we eat our dinner, we clean our dishes, we put them in the dishwasher, and then Buster knows that he gets his lick mat afterwards, and the dog has done nothing. Yeah. No behaviors are being rewarded. It's just, this is a routine thing that we've worked into our day. And then what happens and how you create a really obnoxious, bratty dog by doing stuff like this is that like, okay, so it's one evening, you're putting your dishes in the dishwasher and you're like, oh no, we don't have dishwasher detergent. I got to run to the store really quick. And while you're gone at the store, your significant other, whatever, forgets to give Buster his lick mat. Oh no. And so Buster's pacing around and he's whining and you go, oh no, Buster, I'm so sorry. And he gets his lick mat. Yep. And then a week later, you continue that every night, but it's right on time. So we don't have any more demand behaviors. But then a week later, something else comes up. Yep. And you're like, oh, a delivery. Let me go do that. And now Buster's barking at you because he's like, bitch, give me my lick mat. Okay, I want it right now.
2 minutes passed.
2 minutes passed, and I know last time when I whined at you, you gave it to me. I got it. And so then we go, oh no, Buster, I'm so sorry. That's really rude, and you should not be doing that. So Buster, sit. And then we give him the lick mat, right? And people just kind of fall into that trap where they give the dog something that's really rewarding and exciting just for existing.
Right.
Just because you existed and I ate my dinner. Now you get something.
My biggest problem with that is that you're feeding into the dog demanding something and allowing them to still do it. You know? It's like a kid throwing a temper tantrum and then you're being like, all right, fine, here's the candy bar.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, but it's like people don't look at it that way.
Right.
Yeah, they don't look at it that way because those first few times it's so like, oh yeah, you're right. Thanks for reminding me, Buster. How could I forget? You know? But it's like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those are things to really watch out for because dogs are so pattern and routine oriented that it's like if you start just giving them rewards to give them rewards, like it's all downhill from there. Yeah. And so it's like instead, if you have a lick mat that you want to give your dog, then it needs to be because the dog's behavior has earned that.
Has earned it, yep.
You know, and it shouldn't happen. It's
seen as a reward.
Exactly. And it shouldn't happen like because of just a time of day has rolled around.
Right. One last thing that I was thinking of that kind of ties into that, and something that we've definitely talked about as well is in terms of like socialization, with rewarding I don't know necessarily rewarding, but giving your dog too much attention when they're clearly are like nervous or possibly even like resource guarding you. Yeah. You know, like we see that a lot of times where dogs running around, maybe they're getting chased by another dog or whatever, you know, they're nervous and they come and run by you and you immediately go, oh, it's okay, Snoop, you know, whatever. You know, it's something where that dog will always kind of depend on you in that sense. I feel
like emotionally regulate them.
Yeah, and to kind of like almost like protect them and stuff. And then I feel like that's where a lot of the like resource guarding can kind of come into play because then they get so dependent on you being their kind of like confidence builder or safety net or whatever it may be, that they're like, okay, I need to be able to protect this thing.
Yeah, your value increases in contrast to everything else because you're safe and everything else is scary. So then when the scary tries to invade the safe, they're like, you got to get out of here. Exactly. This is mine.
Yep.
No, that's a really good one. Yeah. Because a lot of people are taught to like calm your dog down and stuff like that. And again, like you said, it's not that like I'm against petting your dog or, you know, whatever. It's more so that you just have to be very intentional about like why you're doing it. Right. It's similarly to like picking up your child and hugging them and rocking them and singing them a lullaby isn't inherently wrong. But if you do that because they just fell on the playground and they're perfectly fine. Yeah. Probably not the best thing to do because then they're going to be like, oh yes, save me. I just tripped and fell and it was the end of the world rather than just being like, oh, you're fine. Get up. Keep going.
I always say this with my nieces and stuff too. It's just something where it's just like, if they trip or fall or whatever, they fall on their butt, they bump their head or whatever, right? They run into something. They always look at you first for your reaction.
Exactly.
You know? And if you have a big reaction, you're, oh my gosh, you know, they're going to cry. But 90% of the time, if you just laugh it off, they're like, yeah, that was stupid. You know? So like, it's the same thing with a dog. If the dog comes up to you and is nervous, like, that dog's chasing me, and you just don't play into it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that dog was just chasing me. Yeah. Like, okay. You know, it's not this whole big thing
of like,
that. Oh, baby, let me just protect you and do other stuff, you know?
Yeah. No, exactly.
So it's something that it's just like, try not to be over involved when you're trying to socialize your dog with other dogs. If you're allowing your dogs to interact with other dogs, and that is the reason that they're doing it, right? You're purposely focusing on socialization. Let them socialize, right? Yes. You should really just be a fly on the wall and step in when you need to. But it shouldn't be something where you are necessarily engaged in the play. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. You can't can't like meddle too
Yeah.
much. Just gotta let them sort it out and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And this especially goes with like dogs that your dog has never met before, newer dogs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah. As long as you like feel confident that they're in a safe environment around the dogs that you've chosen to put them with.
Mm-hmm. And the key word there is you've chosen, right? You, again, the owner, are taking precedent and being aware of what the environment that you're putting your dog in before your dog just finds out like, oh shit, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Like,
Yes,
you know, it's
exactly.
like, okay, you have to understand that and then take the initiative to get them out, you know?
Yeah. No, that's super important.
Yeah. But I know, I feel like those, I mean, this is a really good topic because it's something that there is just so much information out there that is just
terrible
bullshit. So it's something that this is good to talk about, but but I feel like the ones that we hit are kind of the big ones that you see a lot.
Yeah, I think those are the main ones that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Can't really think of any
maybe when Bridget
pressing
comes
ones.
back.
Yeah, we could expand our list.
Yeah. I'm sure she'll have a couple other things.
Yeah, if you guys have any things in your opinion that people are told should be a big deal or are very important and you don't think are a very big deal, write those below.
Or questions about anything. Yeah. Yeah, we'd love to talk about it. But
cool.
Right.
Actually, I did see a comment on, I don't remember which video it was, but somebody did specifically ask, like, what does vet specific training look like with dogs we've had that like can't go to the vet without being fully sedated, and that might actually be a good topic to talk about.
That would be a really good one.
So if you left that comment, I did see it.
Yeah.
And we will talk about it at some point because we get so many clients that is like the biggest problem.
Vets and groomers, biggest thing. So
biggest
that we
thing.
will kind of engulf both of them.
Because it is a very there is very specific things that I do to address it and work on it.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing to bring up. So we'll have to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really good.
Cool. Well, thanks for
Alrighty.
joining us.
Yeah. Hope you learned something. Have fun.
See ya later.
Bye.